studios in New York City. This is Charlie Rose.
Welcome to the broadcast. Tonight, Sean Penn for the hour. A personal note, he is somebody I like very much. He is smart, he is perceptive, he is fun to be with, and he is incredibly talented. There is a depth in his work and in his character. He is also among the best of his generation of actors. Ask anybody who has worked with him.
If he's not the greatest actor in America, I don't know who is.
Is that right?
I think he is. I mean, for his generation, certainly. He's a real pleasure to direct.
I think he's the best actor of his generation, and I just wanted to go the best first. And I had heard he had stopped acting, but he responded immediately to the script and said yes right away.
Did he tell you why he responded to it? What was it about this role?
He said that when he read it, he cried, and he just felt that it was a good script, and he wanted to do it.
Yeah. He has 3 new movies out: The Game, She's So Lovely, and U-Turn.
This is for you. You should have. What do you get for the man who has everything? Consumer Recreation Services. Well, I do have golf clubs. Call that number. Why? They make your life fun.
What's your coat, Maureen? We're getting out.
So all you need is a coat and some good shoes. Do what I tell you.
Joey, can I talk to you for a minute?
Talk.
Never mind.
Make up your mind, babe. I want you to stay. He wants you to go.
Yet, despite so much acclaim, he doesn't love acting, as he told me in a November 1995 interview.
I don't enjoy acting. So I think that, you know, the way I kid myself about it is it's like if I've already got a job if I'm directing, so why do it? Primarily, it's got to do with being able to pick your material because you wrote it, and then direct it is one process. To be out there as an actor for hire, looking for things, the likelihood of coming across something that's going to be sort of harmonious with whatever it is that's part of your own search at that time, whatever you're trying to figure out, whatever your obstacles are at that time, and not take your mind off it, but actually enhance that bit of your journey.
What he does like is the contentment he gets from his wife, Robin Wright Penn, and his 2 children. He sat down with me in Los Angeles over the weekend to catch up on his life and his work. Man, a lot has changed since I last saw you. 1995, November. Dead Men Walking.
Right.
You've now got 3 movies coming out. You're back with Mrs. Penn. Mm-hmm. The 2 kids are older. You seem at a great place.
Yeah, I like to think that I am in a good place. To, you know, never trust it for more than a day. So.
You just go for the day.
That's right.
Yeah. We talked last time a lot about acting and what you didn't like about it. And now all of a sudden, I look around and there's The Game, She's So Lovely, U-Turn, coming up, Thin Red Line.
Well, what really happened is I kind of bookended myself because I had been a long-time fan of Terry Malick's movies and then had gotten to know him a bit at a certain point and kind of committed blindly to whatever if he would come back and do a movie. So then by the time that he did, he came around and said he was going to do this, The Thin Red Line, and that was going to be a year from that time, and then that was right at a time when I was about to do something I'd committed in my head. I'd committed to John Cassavetes' She's So Lovely on the front end of that year. So you can't really move and direct something when you know you just have a year. That would be limiting. It takes me that long to cut a movie. So I would be being bookended like that. When things would come in, I took them and paid the bills. And
well, those 2 you did almost for friendship reasons, in part.
Yeah,
I mean, you promised Malick that you would, you know.
Well, yeah, but the friendships is reasons are the same. Are the deepest reasons you want to do anything creatively. Also, because you find that, you know, you have friendships because you have a kind of common sensibility with things. I mean, I had been involved with She's So Lovely for 8 years or so. I mean, I'd been longer than that because I'd been originally going to do it with John. Cassavetes, and then I was at one time thinking about directing the movie. So it was something that I felt an attachment to.
So have you not, in fact, changed your ideas that you really don't want to act very much, and that what you want to do is direct because it's more satisfying?
I've taken a crash course in my own disdain for the process of acting.
And come out?
Well, you know, you get, there's some of these movies are movies that I'm glad I did. So there's that, you know, it's in the same way that you're glad that, you know, some girl in high school broke your heart. No, I got to learn out of that one. Yeah. But I don't want to go pursue that heartbreak again, or that kind of thing. But you don't, movies are only feel like that when you're in them, and you have a tendency to let yourself forget and get involved, and then you do it, and you're miserable, and then you've done it, you're glad you did it. But I would like to start making a point of keeping my time clear to sit down and write and to direct movies.
Direct those things that you write?
Yeah.
What are you working on now?
A couple different things. Mixing things up in a laboratory.
I want to come back to that in a moment, but let me just stay with acting for a second. When you look at all these performances, which one do you like the best?
Well, I think more in terms of what movie I feel particularly invested in the way that I think that this idea that actors or artists should be aware of the times they're living in, the one that I feel is most important to if movies are important, because I'm never sure about that, but is She's So Lovely. There's something about it that's just, it displays love as the mess that it is at best, and accepts it in a way that doesn't seem to attach itself to the kind of emotional political correctness that you get surrounded by so much of the time.
It's about love, and it's about the sort of craziness of love. Here he is, he goes away for 10 years, and he comes back, and he hasn't forgotten how much he loved her.
Right.
And he's going to have her back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the craziness of it.
Right. Right. Well, you know, it's much easier, I think, for people to celebrate Romeo and Juliet, where a case today would be made that you're romanticizing teenage suicide. Yeah. You know, it's intensely romantic and passionate that they take their own lives because they think they're not going to be able to be together. But if you have a movie like She's So Lovely, where in the whimsy of the style of the movie, a mother leaves her kids to be able to be with the man she loves, this is, of course, obscene to people. But it's all right if they killed themselves. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
How is it, I mean, when you and I talked before, you and Robin were split.
Right.
And you talked almost openly about the pain of that.
Right.
And now you're back, and now you're even working together.
Yeah.
Your idea?
Well, she came to her senses, just generally.
She just got smart.
Yeah, you know, I think...
You no longer just describe her as the mother of my children.
No, that's a self-protective term.
But was it, I mean, how was it to be there with her acting after, you know?
Great. You know, she was...
It's a great role for a woman.
Yeah, I think the best of what we had professionally and personally came back like riding a bike. You know, it's just the tires were flat for a while there.
All right, let me talk about the other movies and come back to some of this.
All right.
U-Turn, Oliver Stone, Nick Nolte.
Well, a very aggressive comedy.
Aggressive?
Film noir,
Yeah.
black comedy. Directed by a guy who's got just an enormous wealth of raw talent, but who also reminds me of one of those pug dogs that are constantly trying to drain this chronic sinus problem there.
Yes,
Yes, you know, that's Oliver Stone to me. Very,
it's like the pugster.
yeah. But he's a savant in a way, you know. His focus on what he's doing is great, and I think, you know, at the very least he's bold, and at his best he's got a certain kind of genius, and I think the movie reflects that.
You're happy with it? Satisfied?
I'm happy with it. I would have much more of a personal investment in something like She's So Lovely, because I think it's guided by the characters specifically, and you're on the Oliver Stone ride much more when you make one of his movies, for one reason, because so much of what he does in post-production. So you come there and you're playing scenes much like you would in anything else, and doing your work the same way, but the way in which it's manipulated to tell the story later in his post-production process with his editor and so on, and sound people, it becomes a surprise to you what it's going to be.
That's why you like directing.
Well, there's that. I think I like directing because I like directing, but I think why I don't like acting is to a degree where, you know, bad luck sometimes, as well as just generally, even in the best circumstances, you know, you're just tearing yourself apart at the wrong time of day, is the way I've always felt about it. I always felt like, you know, with directing, you do all of your emotional work as a writer, and then you come there and orchestrate somebody else really doing the difficult work, the acting. And that's on a schedule that's dictated by you know, money and things like that. So when I write, which is to me the closer equivalent than directing to acting, writing is, I pick my times. I go to the typewriter when I want to. I don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and be there like you do as an actor.
It wasn't because you just spent so much. I mean, you were so good, and you were so much on the edge of giving your own emotion, and in the end, you couldn't find a connection that was satisfying in terms of a journey you were on.
I mean, that's maybe a more articulate way of describing something I haven't got completely in tow myself. Now, I wouldn't say that that's an inaccurate observation, but I know that that when I started to recognize that acting was something that made me uncomfortable, it was at the same time that I recognized that it had been making me uncomfortable probably from the start.
Yeah. Terrence Rafferty and others have looked at this unhappiness with you and said that people with great gifts sometimes get bored with their gifts, and that it happened to Brando in his 50s and it happened to you when you were 30.
Well, bored with a gift is an interesting, I mean, I don't know that it's true. I don't believe that it's true of Marlon Brando either. You know, I think that one becomes more protective of whatever it was whatever it is that they feel that they have to exercise, and the ways in which they have a craft to do that. And especially in a case like Marlon, when, you know, the spotlight goes on and says, all right, you're it for the last 100 years and for the next 100 years, you know, do your stuff. And that becomes such a
burden.
A burden, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're carrying around. Everybody has said you've changed acting.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's...
I don't think you can really be as aware of that as everybody else is. But Bob Dylan actually had a great line that wasn't particular to that, but it was about, you know, any kind of self-consciousness that happens. He's like, he say, you know, what's the worst thing about being famous? He says, well, when people remind me who I am. And I think that when there's a kind of general label like that, like you're the Marlon Brando being the greatest actor, whatever, that becomes quite a burden, yeah.
Well, was it a burden from you when they said early on, this is the best actor of his generation?
No, I took it as just a discerning audience. No.
People of great judgment writing.
No, I was much, you know, I think that was a nice thing to hear when one heard it, but no, that wasn't so much a part of me feeling burdened. I just felt burdened by the process itself.
Because, I just want one more attempt to find out the process, because in the end it left you feeling
It just
empty.
didn't feel good.
Empty.
Yeah.
And nothing has changed about that.
No.
I mean, you've been doing these films for all these reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
but you know every time you go out there, it's going to make you feel not satisfied at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you tend not to start a film unfueled. You know, your tanks get refueled and you don't feel empty, and you say, well, maybe I'll get through this one. But you don't.
You said sometimes that to be out there as an actor for hire is unlikely to find, you know, some harmony with a search that you're on. You don't find that. You know?
Yeah, that's
whatever you're looking for yourself as an individual, you don't find it
Yeah, I think that everybody in film or in writing or whatever the arts, if I call it that, it has to be on some kind of journey where there's a kind of progression where you don't walk over the same path twice, and that you're most valuable to something that you haven't resolved entirely. Where it's most exciting to you is where it's most exciting to an audience, and that's kind of going into something that's of immediate interest to you.
Between 91 and I think about 96, you made 2 movies, Carlito's Way and Dead Man Walking, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Did you feel any sense of, man, I wish I was there, I wish I was out there, or all the creativity that you have within you was finding expression and doing other things, whatever it was?
Yeah, it was for me creatively probably the best time, because I was writing so much. So I think but no, I had learned a lesson which I'm trying to reteach myself, which is don't read scripts, because when you read them, you start to work, and when you start to work, you seduce yourself, and the next thing you know, you're in the middle of a movie shooting in some location saying, what the hell am I doing?
You don't know what happened. You just got hooked and went for it.
Yeah.
Here is what you said about films. And I love this quote. I'm interested in films only when the filmmaker's dreams are being shared with me, not when he or she is saying you don't have enough dreams yourself, so I'm going to make some up for you when I go into the theater. I'm hoping that people will not lie to me. The reason so many of these people don't look inside themselves and ask, what do I really want to say, is that they're cowards. That's a real indictment, that people are doing this because they have no confidence in their own soul, no confidence that they have something to say.
That's right. That's right. I think I also said, because I get catchphrases in my head, and I think it's particularly true of the American cinema. Not that I can say that I'm all that well exposed to foreign cinema, but what I do see of it, it seems that there's still a shred of filmmaking as an art of expression, and here it's all about being the impressive,
right,
and to dazzle.
I'm going to impress you with the pyrotechnics of what I can do, rather than express to you something that I uniquely know.
Right.
That I want to share with you.
And it's not timeless. It's very of one particular time, and it seems to suit a particular type of stimulation that is, you know, pop-oriented art, and I just don't think that it's valid in the long run.
But then tell me what's valid. Tell me where you think it's being done right. What movie? What place? You know? I want to know what your dream is and what your sense of all of this is. Where does it...
Well, in the same way that we like to believe, and I do believe that, you know, mankind, womankind, shares a kind of bottom line sensibility about love, about pain, about joy, about comfort. I think in the same way, a man of the 90s shares a common sensibility that entirely to the same degree with someone of the 40s, and will of someone in, you know, space age years. And so when one stays true to those basic principles of kind of what we care about and what we live for, those ones that transcend particular epochs and that sort of thing, and does it in a way that they are sure of, that they've lived, that they understand, or that they question openly, then the only thing you can share with anybody is commonality. You can't really teach anybody anything about their own heart.
You can tell about your own dream, and if they can somehow connect as that's my dream too.
You can remind them.
That's my passion too, or that's mine.
Right. There's a great story that I don't like to use the word God often because I'm not sure what that is, but you'll get the gist about a young couple who has a child, a newborn, and they bring it home from the hospital, and then they have also a 4-year-old, And he said, the 4-year-old says, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to see the baby." They've put the baby in a crib in another room. He said, "Of course, darling." They start to walk with her to the other room. She says, "No, Mommy, no, Daddy, I want to see the baby alone." And they're both a little nervous because they've heard about sibling jealousies and that sort of thing. They said, "Well, why do you want to see the baby alone, honey?" She says, "I can't tell, it's a secret." And they're nervous, and they say no. And she starts to weep, but then a couple of days go by, and she refuses to see her new sibling under any other circumstances. And the couple is laying in bed one night, and they say, "You know, maybe we're depriving her of something that's really going to be important. And there's an intercom in the room. Worst comes to worst, we can rush in." So the next day they have led her, and they watch her disappear behind the baby's door, and she closes it, and they rush to the intercom. And there's about 30 seconds of silence, and then the 4-year-old's pitter-patter of her feet move to the crib, and you hear her whisper to the baby, "Tell me about God, I'm forgetting." And I think that artists have to be that baby.
Yeah.
You know, that baby's got to be the speaker, and that's what artists should do. They should just understand the most they can do is remind people of their own worth and hope.
You said earlier you're not sure that movies can do that. You're not sure that movies can make a difference.
Well, one of the things that's discouraging, of course, is you make a movie which I believe has that. You know, She's So Lovely, I think, has that in the way that it doesn't exclude sort of impoliteness from the process of committing to a love and believing in a love. That if you put, you know, there's nothing insane about a lion. There's something insane when you put a baby in a lion's cage. And you know, this is a lion's cage, and everybody's a baby here, and so certain kinds of behavior that we'd rather not look at occurs. But you can't let that stop you from believing in whatever put you in that cage and whatever you love in that cage. You can't decide that you hate all lions because it attacked you or the baby, you know.
Yeah. Did Cassavetes ever talk to you about She's So Lovely? I mean, he wanted you to star in the film back when he wrote it. He wrote it years ago. I mean, he wrote it a number of years before he died, didn't he? Or did he write it near the end of his death?
I think about somewhere in the last 10 years before he died. And yeah, we talked about it at length because we were going to do it together for about 2 years, but we couldn't get it financed.
Does he represent for you, in some sense, of somebody who did have the right idea and who had the right sensibility and who understood art separate from commerce and was out there on the front line?
Yeah, I think as American filmmakers go, he was the best of it so far.
Who else is there?
Well, I see films sometimes that I respond very strongly to. You know, it's hard. It's always hard in these moments to recall what I'm thinking of.
How about in France? How about in Europe? I mean,
they're there. You see the films. I mean, the films Kusturica are astonishing films. As well, there are Americans also doing it, but they don't. It just doesn't come to mind right now. Mostly there was a lasting emotional effect.
Here's what else that's interesting about how you see this. It's not just the studios. I mean, a lot of people say it's the problem with Hollywood. It's a problem with the studios. I mean, your finger is equally pointed at actors and directors who take the money and run.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, you can't make a movie, you know, unless it's a cartoon. You can't make a movie without actors and directors. And I think that there has been a kind of mass selling of their souls.
Take Dead Man Walking, where you got a nomination for, and all of a sudden you end up, and it doubles your salary, what the hell it does, right? I mean, they're willing to pay you more money.
Yeah.
Are they willing to listen to you anymore? Does your...
Well, what happens is the doubled money figure is one I haven't been able to collect on, because there's still, it doesn't matter who you are. If Mel Gibson wants to do a Kusturica movie,
right?
He's not going to get his 20, 30, whatever millions of dollars that he gets. You know, they will offer actors a lot of money to do movies where the actor commercially is in sync commercially with the material. And so there are whole careers that are based on the actors and the studios and the writers and directors of those kinds of films finding that harmony, looking for those projects. Agencies are built on recognizing and putting the packaging together of those kind of movies. And they're almost assured a certain level of success because of the way that they're going to promote them and that they have an actor who in that context will mean a lot. But you're not going to get that well paid for something that you know, the smaller films. And that's what's most discouraging is, you know, not only in a lot of the films that I've cared most about, that I've been involved in, but in a lot of the ones that I care most about from the outside. You know, there was a film that I did respond to very strongly a few years ago was Robert Altman's movie Vincent and Theo.
Oh yeah, me too.
And nobody went. You know, and that's discouraging. That's why I wonder if it's not that I don't think it's important. You know, I know that films are important because they're important to me. When I respond like that to a film, they're inspiring. They make me feel less alone in the world. But they need some kind of audience participation beyond what they're getting.
Let me just talk a little bit about where you are, and back and personal stuff. You have been talking in a couple of things that I've read about growth and about love and about the constancy. I mean, you do, this is where I started, you get a real sense that you've matured or you've come to somewhere. Can you? I mean, is it just time? You know, all of us, in a sense.
Well, a long time ago, I was making a movie with Christopher Walken, and we were sitting between setups at some point, and I was going through some particular roller coaster ride emotionally at the time. And I just felt weary, and I said, Chris, I said, is it, you know, you're older than I am, you know, is it always this roller coaster? You know, it's always like, and he says, it's always the same roller coaster, you just learn to enjoy the ride. You know? I think that it's, you know, Bukowski used to talk about, you know, the one thing that we should seek beyond anything else is comfort.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable.
Because?
I don't know. I think you get bored with the things that make you uncomfortable.
Well, when you were at what some might say your most wild, the wildest you were in your life, was that because you were uncomfortable? Because you weren't happy? Because you didn't have a constancy? Because...
I think it was... I think I avoid the circumstances that if one is to look at them clearly, they're going to respond. You know, I think that if we were to look at our government too clearly, we might find ourselves in some kind of militia. It's hard to look at the world around us, whether it's a microcosm of silliness like most of Hollywood is, or, you know, the big picture where there's children starving all over the world, and spend a lot of time very focused on it and not react. Yeah. So I think I was reacting to things that I probably have just been a little bit more choosy about what I look hard at. It's refocusing. I don't know that it's a healthier thing because I think somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to shake it up, you know, and whether you're shaking it up in a way that seems like, you know, you're just hitting your fist against a stone wall whining, which often I felt like I was doing, or shaking it up by some kind of actual activism, legitimate activism. I think that there's that spirit's got to be allowed to live, and it's much harder, I think, now than ever for it to live. When anybody ever steps off the line, you see a lot of flack.
Bukowski, you mentioned him. I mean, I never understood why you didn't do Barfly.
Well, because the property was not introduced to me by Hank. It had been introduced to me by Dennis Hopper, and that script. Yeah. I knew books, but I didn't know that screenplay. Yeah. And so by the time I was talking to Bukowski about it, I felt committed to Dennis Hopper directing it. And Barbet Schroeder owned the piece, right, and wanted to direct it one way or the other.
And wanted to make the O'Rourke for it? Or?
Well, he would have been fine doing it with me, but if he were the director.
Yeah, and you wanted only Dennis to do
I
it.
had asked if he would, because nothing was happening with it, if he'd step aside, but not because of no reflection on him as a director. It's just my commitment was elsewhere.
The connection between you and Dennis, I assume your son is named after Dennis.
Well, let's put it this way: I'm not ashamed of the connection to this by naming him Hopper, but I'm.
Is there some other Hopper in your background?
I just we like the name.
All right, but stick with me on this. I mean, the people that you like, Dennis, Bukowski you liked a lot.
Yeah.
Who else? Cassavetes you liked a lot. Brando you like a lot. Nicholson you like a lot. What is it they share that's a commonality for you?
They have raging talents that you know. I would go for that. You know, you tend to love these guys. It's almost as when you're a director and you're in casting, you know, and choosing actors. It's just the actors you have an immediate affection for. You know, with people, I do judge a book by its cover, but not the cover that they present so much as the first feeling that you get about somebody. And those people are all people I had a great feeling about.
Authentic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the word that describes that cast of characters best. Yeah. Authentic.
How about rebel?
Well, if you're authentic in an inauthentic society, you're rebellious.
When you look, those guys, you know, you'd said something really neat about them once that I read. These are guys who've gotten as much pain as they can take, who've come up against very high levels of histrionics, like everyone does. These are guys whose soul survived, and that to me is an inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Jack Nicholson, not only has his soul survived as a person, but as an artist. You talk about somebody saying that artists get bored with their own gifts. This guy's so still in love with acting. You know, and that's a great spirit.
But here's what I don't get. I mean, I know I'm struggling with why you don't love acting. I know you've tried to tell me. We talked about expression and impression. Impressive, expressive. De Niro loves it. Pacino loves it. Travolta loves it. All of them considered the best of their generation and beyond. But you don't love it.
Well, I think there have been...
Nicholson loves it.
Imagine how many women were in love with Warren Beatty, okay? Warren Beatty is one choice. He's not the choice that I would make.
Okay, but...
Although I like him very much, you know, and I respect him, and I respect acting.
Yeah.
I just don't want to gabble.
You don't want what? All right, but stay with me on this stuff. All right, so Madonna, same thing. I mean, tons of men would love to be married to Madonna, but...
Yeah, well, I didn't love to be married to her, but she's again a heck of a person.
You admire her.
Yeah, I think she's
we
terrific.
talked about that.
Yeah.
But it was there is some belief it was all that celebrity thing that just drove you nuts, and not so much that she was getting it, but that you had to be subjected to it because it was so alien to where you wanted to be. Yeah,
I don't think that necessarily was that might have expedited the demise of that marriage. But I think I, mistook a great first date for a wedding partner, and and somebody who's a terrific person, but it wasn't a match meant to be. You know, which is how I feel about acting too.
It just wasn't a match made to be. You said one time that acting is like an ugly girl to you, who's beautiful to everybody else.
Yeah.
Same thing, the Warren Beatty idea.
Yeah.
You understand why everybody else thinks it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But for me...
Well, you know, the mathematics of the face are just right, and the hair does this, and it smells good and everything, and I don't want it.
I know. But writing does.
Yeah.
And people might say, that's a boring girl, and you'd say, maybe boring for you, buddy.
Yeah, well, they don't know her behind closed doors. She takes her glasses off and
lets the hair down. Just go with me on this, too. You're now smoking less because you're running.
Yes.
You've only smoked 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's
the
right.
Last time we were together, you smoked 4 in the first 3 minutes.
That's right.
You know, one after the other.
That's right.
You know, what are you doing? You're just getting healthy because you're getting...
My daughter's all over me on
Oh,
this
really?
one, yeah.
That'll make a difference.
It makes a big difference, particularly when, you know, it's sitting here out here and doing an interview, you know, 400 miles away. You get away with a little
She's
more.
going to watch this interview, though.
No, it's on too late.
Oh, it's
school year.
school year, so she can't see it. I have an enormous admiration, and I make no bones about it, for you because of your artistic sensibilities. But you look back on some of this stuff. I mean, the scene where you and Madonna are breaking up, and the helicopters overhead,
Yeah.
and the SWAT,
Yeah, SWAT surrounded the
team
house.
are surrounding the house. She's out there in a car.
Yeah.
And what are you thinking?
Well, I was eating my cereal at the time, and the first thing I heard was the helicopter.
Yeah.
And then I heard all the cars coming up the driveway, and then I kept eating my cereal, and I had a certain sense of what was going on, especially when the PA system on the helicopter started saying, "Mr. Penn, come out of the house."
With your hands up?
Which I had no intention of doing. And I then stepped to the garage door, and I told them they didn't need a warrant. I could see that they had one of the co-owners of the house in the car. And I went back to the cereal, and I waited, and I heard the windows break. They were worried about their deputies because it had been announced to them that I had guns in the house, which I replied, "Yes, I do, but I don't see any reason to use them this morning. I'm just having breakfast." And I went back in the kitchen. And
I'm not in a killing frame of mind.
Not today. It was early. I'd been up all night arguing. And
With her?
yeah. And so, yeah, it's very funny when I think about it now.
Yeah, I know.
And it was funny then. It was less funny in between at some point. There was a point in time. But, yeah.
Now, did you, at the wedding, when you got married, going back to the beginning of this?
Did I take a shot at a helicopter?
At a helicopter.
What's the statute of limitations on that? It's very possible that
You
I
might
did.
have. Somebody did. It might have been you.
Yeah.
Now, what does this say?
Oh, that's madness. I mean, you know, because a handgun is never going to be accurate enough
Yeah.
at that range, you know.
So if it was accurate, it would have been...
Well, at least there would have been a kind of clarity of thought.
Yeah. Anybody who would shoot a handgun at a helicopter was not engaged in clear thought.
That's right.
Even though it was
That's
on
right.
his wedding day.
Yes, you need a rifle to scope, you know.
All right, just to have fun for a moment. So when you would go into bars, why would you punch out people?
Well, I didn't
They
go-
always started, didn't they?
Yeah, you know, yeah.
Yeah, they did.
No, you know, you get a certain kind of reputation, and it becomes like you know, the old gunfighter syndrome.
Yeah, you bet.
And particularly, you know, little bars out of town, things like that. You get into beefs. People just looking to, you know. I mean, I've still got some guy in England who gets to go to the movies and say, "You see that scar there above his eye? I did that."
That was me.
Yeah.
He came in and I get a left cross.
Yeah, so you become a sign of, you know, a map to, you know, celebrity scrapes.
When you were going through that period, was it just...
Well, my life was more, took place when the lights went out more, and I think anybody gets into odder situations when you're drinking and a lot and doing that. You know, I've got a family and I'm home, but I don't, you know.
Is life more fun today, or...
Listen, as far as the stuff like with paparazzi and all that kind of stuff, you know, would I do it again? Yeah, only harder. You know?
Well, you could argue, and I want to get you, you know, you could argue that your rebellion against that intrusion was a forerunner of how bad it was going to get, leading to tragedy.
Yeah, it sure did. And, you know, I think we don't live in a democracy anymore. We live in a hypocrisy. I mean, if you talk about invading people's privacy, or you talk about, they talk about the First Amendment, I think I'm a strong believer in. I think whatever is done about this, you have to preserve the integrity of the First Amendment. But at the same time, if you have a business and you hire a secretary and she's pretty, and you say, "Hey, you want to go out with me?" You can be guilty of sexual harassment. But if, now I'm not a woman, I don't know. Do they feel trapped by that? If they have that job, automatically do they feel trapped? If they feel trapped, then there should be some recourse. I don't know if it's legal. But when someone in the public eye feels trapped, you walk out of a restaurant and you feel trapped. If somebody's a driver, whether that's a drunk driving issue or it's not, I don't know. But I do know what those chases are like. I've been in them many times. Because you are surprised by something, your quality of life is chipped away at systematically by those people, and by the bounty that's put on your head by the magazines that buy their work. And at a certain point, you say, you know, this is a country that's supposed to protect minorities as well as majorities, and if the minority is in the public eye, they have to have some kind of quality of life protected also. How you do it, I'm not sure. I think there are some good options. You know, one of them might be that you can't profit from maybe you need only salaried photographers, rather than the mass bounty that they put out, and you can't additionally profit from particular shots. It is one idea, but this kind of thing has been coming for a long time.
What's, in the end, offensive about it for you? Is it simply getting in my space, invading my privacy, limiting my freedom?
Well, that's a big part of it. It's no different than if I decide to have this conversation like this. You know, you get, yeah, it's just like, you know,
yeah,
that thing.
Right.
And, you know, so there's that. There is privacy. There is just, you know, living your life. There is the way that a still camera flash affects you. You know, why should your heart be jolted like that as you walk out and somebody jumps out of the bushes, or you look to your left and there's a lens pointed at you from a car? It's an upsetting thing.
Yeah. And if you say to them, look, I'll give you a chance to take a photograph, but let's just do it in a civil way, that doesn't go.
No, that doesn't go, because once they get that photograph, they continue. They stay after you, and they provoke you. They say nasty things and try to provoke you. You know.
Have you, though, found some, I mean, have you, in terms of wherever you are at 37, found some sense of look for some balance to it? I mean, you're in a business that's a public business. You want to market your product. Not just you. The best artists in the world, you know, are there. They have exhibitions and they show their painters, whether it's Robert Rauschenberg at the Guggenheim now, whoever it might be. How do you finally square that, some sense?
I square it by coming here where you and I have made a choice, both made a choice to be here and do this.
Right.
You have your show, I have
you select who you want to be with.
Yeah, and your time to do it, and there is a time and a place for it. And I think that to a large degree this should apply to even, you know, political candidates as well. I think that, you know, how can you expect a president to make rational decisions where he doesn't have a rational life in any way? There's got to be some, you know, at bottom line it comes down to some kind of human respect that doesn't exist with these people.
What are your politics?
They swing from the far left to the far right.
Where would they be on the far right? Almost libertarian on some questions of...
Well, the far right being, I guess if we define the far right by being conservative, they'd be, you know, I would say that...
Right to bear,
I don't believe... Oh, the right to bear arms?
Yeah.
Yes, I have very mixed feelings about that. I think, again, it's another one that should be more strongly preserved than it has been. At the same time, there's got to be some kind of psychological regulation. There's got to be some kind of psychological education in the country, but it applies to all of these rights that get abused, though. And, you know, we live in this country where we've got about 9/10 of the active serial killers are all in the United States of America.
Why is that?
Because of the unspoken emotional oppression, the damage that's done to people at a young age, the damage that's allowed to occur, the lack of education that's allowed to occur, and the way that we are all right with that as long as the rich are comfortable, and because our artists lie.
Your dad was blacklisted, Leo Penn. Did that have any shaping influence on you? Or was it all when you were not
Well, I think that he had a shaping influence on me, and that's a kind of
The values that encouraged him to take the position he did
just to take
are the
the
values
position.
that he imparted to you.
Believe what you believe in. Don't be sidetracked by what's going to make it easy. You know, it wasn't easy for him, and a lot of things in a a much lighter arena haven't been easy for me. But I think that
What hasn't been easy for you?
what hasn't been easy for me is dealing with a lot of the things that we've been talking about.
Correct.
And I mean, the most important one being, it isn't easy for me to reconcile that audiences don't go to the kinds of movies that I think are productive. You know, so that's what I mean by lighter arena. See, at least it seems lighter, but maybe it's not, in the sense that, I think that artists have always dictated a certain kind of social consciousness. They've been these sort of, I think Ramsey Clark said it, the unspoken or unsung legislators. And, I think it's time that they take responsibility for that. That's extremely discouraging.
I don't know what you're working on now, but what kinds of stories do you want to tell? Do you know? I mean, are the things that do you have a backlog of ideas that you want to express, not impress?
Yeah.
What kinds of things?
Well, they come in snippets, and then bit by bit over time they start to find form, and you find out which ideas are all connected to one story, and you start to put them together, and that's the way I work when I write. So on a daily basis, I'm thinking about things, and they fall into categories of which of the stories, because I know landscapes of stories in my head, and then I know sort of emotional ideas, and those are separate things, and you find out which ones merge.
You're now directing your parents.
Producing a play.
You're producing a play. Remembrances, is it?
Right.
You've directed your mom a couple of times, both times, right?
Right. Yes.
She was an Indian runner and one role, and then she had a larger role in Crossing Guard.
Right.
Yeah, and your dad had a small part in.
Yeah, it hit the cutting room floor. It's the whole subplot.
You cut your father out?
Yeah.
What kind of guy are you?
He's a commie.
You are?
he was a commie.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to give him any kind of attention to this
But his whole part is in there in the play.
In the play.
Yeah.
There is also this about you. I don't know, and I say this, I've said this before, Robin Wright is a beautiful woman.
Yeah, she's good by me.
Madonna was an interesting woman. I mean, you have an enormous appeal to beautiful, interesting women. Think of the people you've been with. I don't know where this goes, I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I've always thought that I capitalized on their perversions. Haven't I?
Yes, yes, you have.
But we take what we can get.
You want to explain that to me?
Well, it's... on the top of the wedding cake, can you say which thing just doesn't belong, I feel like that sometimes. But Robin makes me feel pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, well, you ended up the right place.
Yes, absolutely.
You remember what you said to me the last time when I said to you, why can't you get together with Robin? You said to me something to the effect, you sure know how to hurt a guy, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had been asking myself that question quite a bit.
Other than finding the means to make the movies that you want to make, to direct as a filmmaker. In the end, that's what you want to be, a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
In the fullest range of that. You want to make movies that have an impact, speak to the soul of people, and reflect your soul. Brando. Explain Brando to me.
There's something so magic about this guy, as great an actor as he is, and great a talent as he is, and as great a mind as he is, when he wants to show that. There's just something about the warmth of this guy's heart and spirit that's so, it's intoxicating, and it's so much fun. He's got as good a sense of humor as exists, you know, and I think that he has a lot of indirect approaches, a lot of, you know, kind of, you know, he likes to have fun with people, trade on people's perceptions of him and of themselves, and he's provocative. You don't leave a sit-down with him not thinking about the conversation.
Do you have any quarrel with the life choices he's made?
Well, it's not my place to have a quarrel with the life choices he's made.
Just in the interest of art.
I'm very interested in seeing him do some more great work. And I think that he is too under the right circumstances.
He is.
I think so. Yeah. Under the right circumstances, I think that he's. You know, his talent is his show of respect for the work. That talent can't be beaten down if it's complete disdain. I think there's a disdain, and a legitimate disdain, for the things that have gone along with it so much of the time, and that's totally understandable to me. But he has a great deal of peace.
Peace.
Yeah, and like I say, his humor is so intact. And, so yeah, would I like to see him get into the main event? Yeah, very much.
You talk to him about it?
Oh yeah.
Likely to happen?
I think so. We're at work on a few things, so we'll knock on wood and hope it works out.
I mean, you'd be the one person that could get him to do it, probably.
He'll get himself to do it when he wants to do it. Like he calls you, he'll seek out the people that will help motivate him, which I enjoy being one of those people, and I hope to be successful doing that. But he's still very present.
When you look around, who has it together in your judgment, in a way that you can look at admiring?
Their lives, or
yeah, yes, just the whole thing has sort of found the right pitch.
Well, you know, even for somebody who I might come up with, you know, it's a transient stage. You know, you go in and out of having it together.
There is this sense, in the end, I mean, as you now talk about growth and you talk about love and you found peace and constancy and connection and all that kind of stuff, you know, none of you says, I have found it. Mostly you seem to be saying, I'm out there on the ocean and this is the way the current flows and I'm there, and sail on.
Yeah, and if you stay on the ocean, you're going to hit some storms.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
You bet.
Pleasure. Thanks,
Thank
you. Sean Penn, we're in California. We're at the Mondrian Hotel. This conversation with Sean Penn. We thank you for joining us. Tomorrow night, an hour with Michael Eisner. See you then.
Bye.